Let's go back to the story in the first two chapters, because I think it's easy for us to gloss over details and miss their significance to the story. We read the first passage in Esther and think, alright, so this guy is rich, move on. But it's so much more than this. In Esther chapter 1, verses 3 and 4, Xerxes throws this party, but all of his military officials and those who keep his rule and reign in all the various regions are in attendance. And this party lasts 180 days. Firstly, that's a long party. I can't even imagine what that must have been like. But it's designed just to show off its wealth, and it completely accomplishes that. It's just a parade of his riches that takes 6 months to watch. Secondly, all of his military officials can leave their posts for 6 months. That's a big deal. They clearly are in a time of peace. But we'll come back to this later. In verse 5, the 180-day party ends, and Xerxes decides to throw an after party. And who was invited? All of the people, from the least to the greatest, who lived in the city of Susa. We don't know how many people that is, but we know at least 500 men are killed in the citadel of Susa later in the story. And that wasn't even a dent in the population. So probably at least thousands of people come to this after party. And it lasts for 7 days. Again, that's power, that's bragging. It's showing off how wealthy you are and showing kindness to everyone. In verse 6 it mentions curtains tied with purple material, which is the most rare of materials in this time. It costs a fortune and nobody could get it. So you have all these poor, lowly citizens of Susa come into the palace and see something they could never dream of affording, in such abundance that it's being used to tie the curtains back. Like, imagine I had so many iPads, I was using them as paperweights. Only iPads cost 100 times more than they do right now. Not only is there purple material, but the curtains are straight up hanging on curtain rods made of silver. So again, who does that? In my house I have fake aluminum curtain rods. I walk into someone's house and see legit silver curtain rods, you know they're rich. And it keeps going. Marble pillars, couches made of gold and silver. And again, this is just exuberant waste of money because he has so much of it. First off, I've got a microfiber couch, and I think that's nice. But I'd love a nice leather couch. They're just too expensive. This guy one-ups everybody 1,000,000 times. Has couches made of straight gold. He's got a few made out of silver. Shows how rich he is, but man, that has to be uncomfortable. No one wants to curl up on a couch made of gold to watch a movie. And to top it off, the floor has a pattern designed in it made of pearls and diamonds. Just walking on jewelry, so much money being displayed. In verse 7 it continues that as if that wasn't enough, everyone is given a cup made purely of gold to drink out of. And the cups are all unique, and they are all filled with the finest beverages in the entire kingdom, for 7 straight days. I get stressed at how much Coke we go through when a few students come over to watch football, let alone a drink that costs 100 times more per serving, being given in thousands of servings for 7 days. Regardless of the worth of this drink, anything above water really that's free, it's a huge bill coming. And the most expensive drink in the kingdom, that's a lot of money. Then to top it off in verse 8, he essentially tells everyone here at this after party, don't hold back, drink however much you like, it's all for you. Here's the thing. Yes, Xerxes is wealthy and spends extravagantly. But here you have him spending extravagantly on the people of his kingdom, the rich and the poor. If the president invites you to come hang out with him for 7 days, lets you sit in any chair in the house except his desk, gives you anything and everything that your heart desires, you're going to be impressed and you're going to think he's a great guy. He's going to have influence in your life. You're not going to go home thinking, man, that guy's a jerk. And so it enables the king to do things like he does, to get rid of a queen and have no one say, what'd she do wrong? But just accept that he had a good reason for it and move on. But it also means he's known as powerful, and he is known in such a way that he can take his top generals and advisors away from battle lines for 6 months and not worry about it. Nor does he have to worry about having anyone and everyone who's important in the same room for 6 months, because no one is going to mess with Xerxes and his kingdom. This man does not understand the meaning of no. He just knows that everything and anything can and will be bought for a price. So it's easy to understand why Esther comes in and sells out to win this beauty pageant he puts on. She probably didn't sell out as much as she was bought. But let's look at her more in depth now. In chapter 2, verse 9, Esther plays the game. She does what's needed to get ahead. She wins the favor of the guy in charge of the pageant, and she gets special treatment. In verse 12, she goes through this 12-month beautification process to be her best, to look her best, to smell her best. It's very shallow of what is required of a queen when 12 months of the process is just making them look good. In verse 15, she seeks counsel from the king's keeper of women, looking for advice on how to get ahead. You know him better than else. What do you suggest I do? Because I don't want to screw it up by being myself. That's what she asked the guy. And then in verse 16, she sleeps with a man outside of marriage. In verse 17, she marries someone who is not Jewish, nor a follower of God. Esther is often compared to other Jewish exiles in Babylon, namely Daniel and company. Daniel and his friends all make it clear from the beginning that they are Jewish, but Esther hides this fact to get ahead. Daniel and his friends all reject Persian influence to win their lives over such things like what they eat and drink. Whereas Esther basically asks, what should I do to have a better chance? She conforms to the Persian customs, whereas Daniel and company reject them and instead stand up for their beliefs, to the point of death even. Esther has completely sold out to the system. She's foregone her beliefs, and she gives in to the world's value system. She's not what we would consider a role model of faith, and her story is off to a terrible start. By the end of the story, she's a hero of faith, and her story is right here in the Bible. But Esther is a perfect portrayal of the good news. And we're going to talk more about that this Sunday, but we're also talking about it tonight. Esther illustrates the gospel. Because you see, God never gives up on Esther, and he never gives up on you. God redeems Esther's life, and he redeems yours as well. When you think God can't use you, you're not understanding the message of the Bible. Instead, you're placing limitations on the God of this universe. You're thinking the message of the Bible is God blesses and saves those who live morally upright lives and always make good decisions. But no. The message of the Bible is that God persistently and continuously gives his grace to people that don't ask for it, to people that don't deserve it, and people that don't even fully appreciate it after we get it. Much like Esther, we have all made mistakes. We've sought the treasures of this world. We put ourselves in the beauty treatments and live as slaves to the world's desires. God hasn't given up on us yet. And that's the story of Esther. That God uses her despite her past shortcomings. Now we're going to discuss, how does that story look in your life? How does that fit into the way that you live?